Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. This is one of two episodes we're putting out ahead of Gameweek 28. Tomorrow we'll be discussing the latest lineup and injury news. And meanwhile today I'm joined by David to look at the best captaincy options. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. It's great to have you back, Joe. Hope you had a nice holiday.
I did.
It's just worth saying that it's really nice to be back on this side of the divide, not in charge of the tech and just being paid for my opinion today. It's very relaxing compared to last week.
Yes, for those that don't know, it's basically the bit I do is basically similar, but I just have to press some buttons and I have to look at things, and sometimes you get worrying notices and warnings and things about stream health and those types of things. So hopefully all will be in good order. So now the captain candidate I want to discuss first is the one I don't own. I probably won't own because he's only really good for this game week, but I think he's the outstanding captaincy candidate this week. It's Aubameyang from Arsenal. Nicely arrested after being benched over the weekend. A home game against Bournemouth. What's not to like? David, do you like him as well?
Yeah, I mean, for this individual game week, he does look very, very good. Obviously, it's frustrating for a lot of people that he missed out on the game week 27 match against Southampton. We did think that maybe he was going to play because, generally speaking, he's played a lot of games and Emery doesn't really like to arrest him. Obviously, he has. While that is very annoying for you if you're an Aubameyang owner from last week, it is, I think, good news for this game week. If I had Aubameyang right now and I was annoyed about the fact he didn't play, I would not be moving him on for this game week because it's a bit. We always say it with some of the Man City options. You know, if they've just missed a game through a benching, then actually it makes your decision about maybe captaining them perhaps the next game week a lot easier because they definitely play. With that rest that's come in. The fixture itself is fantastic, arguably better than Southampton as well, because Bournemouth are just absolutely dreadful away from home. They've lost their last 8 away games in a row by a combined score of 23 goals to 3. So, all Arsenal options for this game look fantastic. Those results have been achieved by Bournemouth statistically playing also quite poor as well. They haven't been unlucky to lose those games by that scoreline. Basically, nobody in their last 4 away matches has conceded more big chances than them. 16, they're joint bottom with Fulham for that one. They're still in the bottom 5 for goal attempts conceded in the box in the last 4 away games with 42. So everything about this fixture looks great from a fixture perspective. Aubameyang himself also looks very good as well. Last week, I mean, it's kind of we can kind of rehash a lot of what we said about Aubameyang last week, this week, because nothing's changed for him really, because it was just a cameo appearance against Southampton. So we can still just reiterate that when he starts home games, he does very well. He's now second for expected goals in last 4 home matches, 4.01. That has just dipped slightly from the fact that he played about 20 or so minutes against Southampton. But still, a very good score there. He's underperforming against it, which suggests that he's not like a Mane or a Son where they've been overperforming, getting points when they shouldn't have done. He's not been getting points when he should have done, and that is always kind of encouraging because it just kind of tells you that when he comes up against an absolutely surefire, great opponent to play, that he's probably going to come good. So everything about Aubameyang this week looks very good and arguably stronger than it was in game of 27.
Yeah, I mean the fact that the killer punch for me is the fact that he was benched at the weekend because Emery has come out and he says that he's going to rotate. He's got Europe. They have to go for that really because they're far from certain of getting a Champions League place in the league. And I think they definitely need to rotate there. Lacazette is obviously suspended in Europe as well, so Aubameyang will play there. But of course, just had his rest. I just really like that. There's a few other just things to put in, a few other stats I like about Aubameyang. Last 4 home matches, only Aguero's had more big chances than Aubameyang. I really like that. He's only had 2, well, I say only, so for his price and the fact that we're really bigging him up here, He's only had 2 goals and an assist over those 4 home matches. Meanwhile, Lacazette has had 4 goals from the last 4 home matches. But I'm not sure Lacazette's going to start. I'm also not sure what, and Arsenal fans indeed are not sure what formation they're going to go with. Will they have more of a wing-back system? Will they have the full-back system? We'll possibly know a bit more tomorrow, so we'll discuss that in the team news video and podcast. And also Bournemouth, as you've said, I mean, they are just... They are absolute whipping boys when it comes to away from home. 18 goals, 18 goals in the last 6 away. That's a record, obviously. 22 big chances, because that's a record as well. No clean sheets. I mean, everything just points to Captain Aubameyang. I really want him, but I've got so many other fires to fight in my team. So many injuries, so many double game weeks, blank game weeks. I can't justify it for one game week. But if you've got
just
him,
add a bit more fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
Not just add a bit more fuel to the fire on Bournemouth. We just talked about how awful they are anyway. That was before they lost Steve Cook to a groin injury. He didn't play at the weekend. Looks unlikely to play this game week, and they had to start Chris Mepham, the guy who'd come in from Brentford, and I didn't think he looked very good in that game. They've also now lost Jefferson Lerma as well, because he's got his 10th yellow card of the season against Wolves, so he's now suspended for 2 matches. And they've already got Lewis Cook's out, David Brooks is out, Stanislas is a doubt. So there's a lot of people missing from their midfield. There's people missing from their defence. So actually, to be honest, it could get worse. They're going into at more of a disadvantage than they've gone into the previous games that they've been thrashed in. So, that's just an added little extra element now on Bournemouth, that it's just everything is going against them when it comes to away fixtures now.
I mean, that's the thing I'll take away from that. Is after reeling off how amazing this game is for Aubameyang and how awful Bournemouth are away, to actually suggest that it could get worse for the Cherries.
I think it could. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that could be good. Okay. I think we're on safe ground with this one. I'm going to predict a comfortable Arsenal victory and plenty of points for Aubameyang. Okay, Liverpool against Watford. That looks great on paper for Salah, and Salah will be my captain, I think, this week. But in his recent form, just 1 goal in his last 4 league matches. Is that a worry? And also, how will Liverpool fare without Firmino, who looks likely to be out after being injured at the weekend? And could perhaps Mane be an option? So lots to consider there with Liverpool. What do we think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you, Joe. The way my team's set up, Salah looks like the obvious choice. It's what I said last week. It's what I will continue to say this week. Watford at home looks like the kind of fixture that Liverpool should be winning, and I'd expect them to. Salah has a very good history against Watford, as we know. This fixture last season was that famous game where he, I think, broke the FPL points in one game week record. 29 points, 4 goals, 1 assist, maximum bonus, everything.
He broke FPL if you didn't own him that week. That was an incredible week. Yeah. It was.
I mean, some people triple captained in that week, and on him alone scored more than some people's free hit squads. It was just ridiculous. So, I mean, obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get the same again. I'm not trying to say that's going to happen, but he does love playing against Watford. He scored in every game he's ever played against them in the Premier League for Liverpool. Ooh. Scored on his Premier League debut against Watford. So that was his 5th goal. He scored 5 goals in those 2 matches last season. He then scored against them this season as well. So 6 goals in 3 games. And Watford, they do look like the kind of... I mean, it's tricky because, people have short memories in football. Everyone kind of looked at that 5-1 win that Watford have gone and put on Cardiff and will maybe be thinking, oh, well, time to get some Watford players in, which may be true. I mean, Deulofeu and Deeney, they're in a decent sort of price bracket that we can maybe consider. But defensively, I haven't trusted Watford all season. And yes, they've had a lot of clean sheets recently, but that's really been down to Foster, who's been making a hell of a lot of saves. Just basically going into the most recent game week, because I think we can't really read too much into that win against Cardiff, because Cardiff just didn't manage the game very well, and they chopped and changed a few players. They changed the winning team. Going into that game week, they were bottom of the league, Watford, for shots conceded in the box away from home. So I don't really think we can, look at what happened at Watford and think, oh, well, at Cardiff. Can't we look at that game and think, oh, well, then they'll go to Anfield and play as well as they did against Cardiff? because that's just, you can't assume that.
I'm hearing that. I'm hearing that a lot. But Watford are in great form. But look at the fixtures they've had. They have been easy peasy in the main. I just want to say, on the screen at the moment, we've got some figures on the screen. So I'm just going to read some of them out for those listening on the podcast. What this is the last 4 home matches that the Liverpool key attackers have been playing, and I've sorted it by goal attempts. Top of the pile, last 4 home matches is Salah with 14, Mane second with 13, Firmino with 12, and Mane and Salah instantly got 4 goals apiece over those 4 matches. Shaqiri's there. I mean, he hasn't got the minutes, but he's got a goal, and just from 6 goal attempts there. But that's not bad considering his minutes. And Milner, an interesting differential, not for a captaincy as well, but he's always in the mix with points, especially when whipping boys come to town. I just wanted to say, with going back to that point about Watford as well, lots of as are saying they're in good form, but they have had very easy fixtures recently, I think, and it's actually there. And looking over their last 6 away matches, so you get a broader sweep there. You get some easier and tougher matches there. They've only conceded 7, but some of those have been quite easy. But Cardiff and Brighton, for example, are the types of teams they faced as well over that period away. So they have conceded 111 shots in their last 6 away, and that's the second worst. And can you actually name the worst team in terms of conceding shots last 6 away, David?
It's possibly Bournemouth.
No, Manchester United.
Oh, is it? Oh, wow.
I know. Oh, wow, I thought that. For another day, that one. But I just saw that and I just thought I'd put that in. Do a little guessing game on that one because it shocked me as well. But yeah, there we go. But back to Watford. 3rd worst for big chances conceded, 20 over their last 6 away matches. And only Bournemouth and Fulham are worse. So the conclusion I've come to is I think Watford have been really lucky not to get an absolute pounding from someone. And as a Salah captainer, so I think if you're out there and you're considering captaining Salah, I think could be good. Yeah. So are you looking at Salah? I know you own Salah, obviously, but are you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's going to be Salah. I think a lot of people are kind of worried that he's out of form. And that the Man United game maybe he should have done better, but. I think Man United changed tack in that game quite early on in the sense that as they started to drop like flies, I think it became very obvious that they couldn't overstretch themselves and go out to try and play their usual style. So then, therefore, it became more pressing for them to try and put pressure on Salah, for example. And we can see that that's largely what they did. I think that they largely restricted him to efforts outside of the box. When you look at what he's done over the last 4 game weeks, it's 14 shots, which is a very nice total, but literally half of those have been inside the box and only 5 have been on target. Whereas coming into that game week, there was a slightly better balance of how many were in the box. So then that's another game that for me that's never going to be indicative of what a team's been like over a prolonged period. And again, I know Man United, that was their first clean sheet at home under Solskjaer in the Premier League. The occasion of it has obviously played a part in how they've set up to try and stop Liverpool from scoring. So again, that's a completely different ballgame to Liverpool then being at home against a team like Watford, who, as we've seen, I think they are so unlucky they've not been thrown. We've been calling them whipping boys for a while and getting a bit of stick, but they are in for a whipping at some point. And away at Liverpool just feels like the most likely time for it to happen, especially if Salah, has a team like Watford that he just loves scoring points against. When I was on the FPL show last week, I think one of the guys said that 10% of all of his points he's ever scored in FPL have been against Watford. So
okay.
I just love playing against Watford.
I like these facts you're coming out. That's a good one. Okay, I'm definitely captaining. Now,
exactly. Choice for me.
Another team that's been rocked by injuries, so Firmino possibly out, we think very likely out for Liverpool. Man City as well. Laporte out, Fernandinho out as well. They were pretty poor last time Fernandinho was out, so that is a potential worry. And many of their top stars played 120 minutes in the League Cup final at the weekends. But are Aguero and Sterling still good options for the armband?
Well, Aguero is kind of the go-to for a lot of people. He's competing very well, I think, at the moment in the Fantasy Football Scout poll for who's the most popular captain this week. It looks like at the moment Salah and Aguero are kind of neck and neck, or at least they were this morning, which actually surprised me personally because I'm I don't own Aguero obviously, but if I did and I own Aguero and Salah, I still think I'd go Salah because obviously he's not played 120 minutes in the cup on Sunday. That for me is just the crucial thing. And Jesus coming in against West Ham, I mean, if you're Guardiola, you'd have no complaints doing that. You wouldn't be worried about that because Jesus, when he does play, tends to score.
Yeah.
And that for me just puts me off. I've been saying it for a long time. It's one of the reasons why I've not had Aguero over the period that other people have and have done very well, is because I've seen it as a risk. But this particular week, I think is one of the biggest risks to him starting that we've seen in a very long time. So yeah, it's hard for me to really get behind him. I understand why, though. I mean, statistically looking very good. Last 4 game weeks, he's top for shots on target, and he didn't even play in game week 27. So that just shows you what he can do when he's there. But if he's not there, then he can't do it.
Like with Liverpool assets, I've also put some figures up on the screen here. This is also last 4 home matches as well. And it's a similar picture. Aguero, you can see how good he is at home. I mean, this is quite startling, really. 14 goal attempts and 7 goals. Well done. Yeah. Sane, if he starts, it suggests he could do well. 1 goal and 3 assists in his last 4 home matches, 11 attempts. So he's second to Aguero. And De Bruyne as well is sneaking in there with 10 shots, so that's not too bad for him. Sterling a bit below with 9, but 2 goals and 3 assists, so he's been very productive as well at home. I think the home stats suggest this is great, but I think, as you said, the worry about rotation, the closeness of the game, the fact they played 120 minutes as well. I was all set to get Aguero and captain him this week, I'll tell you. I was going to... I was all set for a chip strategy of free hitting game week 31 and really focusing on the key 32 potential double game week players. And we're fairly certain that City are going to be playing then. So I thought I'd target them. I'm all stocked up on Manchester United and Wolves players. I'm well on the way to a great game week 32 team with Aguero there spearheading that. And everyone got injured in my team. So I've completely changed that. And sadly, Aguero won't be my team. I still like him. I think, he's fit. He's a professional. So I still think he can play. And I think if anyone's got him, I still think it's a tough choice between Aguero and Salah if you own both and don't own Aubameyang. But let's look at the other side of Manchester United as well. And get this, another team rocked by injuries as well. So Rashford amongst their injured, and Matic as well. I think he's an important player, not for the captaincy, but potentially other captains. Yeah, what do we think of Manchester United ahead of their game with Palace?
Yeah, it's a really tricky one. As you say, stricken by injuries and all in positions that could impact attacking output. We were talking before we came on about the absence of Matic seems to have forced Pogba a little bit deeper against Liverpool. I mean, I'm sure that even if Matic had been playing, I would expect Pogba to have played a deeper role anyway because it's Liverpool. But that absence obviously doesn't help him. If Rashford's not going to play, which I think he's 50% likely to play on the official FPL site right now. My inkling is that he won't play because he doesn't really need to. They've got alternatives. That obviously means I wouldn't captain Rashford for a start, but it also for me is detriment to Pogba's appeal as well, because I think a lot of what Pogba has been able to achieve as a fantasy asset has been down to how well Rashford's been playing as well. So lots of reasons to be put off by them. Pogba's generally been more of an asset at home. Not to say he hasn't been one away, but he's been a bit more reliable in home matches. I can understand why I know there's a lot of people right now looking at Palace, for example, and saying, oh, well, there's a few injuries there that could play into their hands. So that could be true. So Wan-Bissaka, red flagged currently. His deputy, Mike Kelly, also red flagged, which meant that I think it was Ward. Yeah, it was Ward who played against...
Setting the dogs on you there.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was Ward, unless the dogs know better. Mm-hmm. That Ward played at right back against Leicester. And it just interestingly enough, Leicester, I know Leicester are nowhere near the attacking prospect of Man United are, but it was very clear from watching the game Leicester v Palace that Claude Puel had told Leicester, let's go down the flank where Wan-Bissaka normally is and is not today. And actually, it didn't really work. Like, Ward was fine. Ward coped with it okay. So in that particular instance, losing Wan-Bissaka didn't seem to cause them that much grief. But of course, they did lose Sakho towards the end of the game. And then, of course, he's now a doubt for the next game. And most people will tell you with good reason, that Crystal Palace are generally a better defensive prospect when they have Sakho and Tompkins together, rather than one of them playing with maybe Scott Dan or someone else. So Palace's defence isn't going into this game at full strength, we would assume, unless, of course, Hodgson turns around and says everybody's fine again. But as of, when we're doing this video, it looks like they're maybe not going to be at full strength. So there's kind of two sides to that. United aren't going to be at full strength. Palace aren't either. But, we'll have to see. I mean, I think just kind of bringing it back to Salah, it's just like with what we have with Salah, with the risks of going with Man United, because I don't think they're at full strength. Just to me, it doesn't seem sensible to pick a Man United player over a Liverpool one for this game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Pogba is my vice captain. I do like him still. But one slight worry I had, now it's Matic being out as well. And something else I'm putting up on the screen now. So for those listening on the podcast, I'll try and describe it. It's basically one of these heat map pictures. And I've done game weeks 18 to 26 and also game week 27. And 18 to 26, we can see Pogba where he is on the pitch. He's all over the shop. He's everywhere in midfield, but he's quite near the goal as well, quite near the opposition goal. So this is doing what you would expect him to be, like a real box-to-box player. And there's lots of red there. That means he's very active in those areas, and that's creeping into the opposition penalty box. Then we look at game week 27. Now, I know it's against Liverpool as well, but he's basically around the halfway line. The red blotches there show that he is around the halfway line. That's it, really. And he's also alongside Herrera a lot there. So he is sort of filling in the Matic role there, and that's not where you want to be seeing Pogba if you're captaining him. So I think there's a danger with Matic being out. It may not happen this way, but there's a danger that Pogba once again will be kind of forced into that much more kind of defensive type duties there, and that's what
they don't really like Fred. So is the only real alternative, isn't he? So
yeah, they don't really like Fred, and they've sold Fellaini as well. Probably one of the only few times that Solskjaer's probably thought, well, I wish I had Fellaini here for this game. I know Mourinho was a fan, but not much else at Manchester United. Now, there's a team that I quite like. It's Leicester at the moment, and I quite like them because they're a bit up in the air. So they've just sacked their manager. They've got a really good home game against Brighton. Brighton aren't great on the road as well. What do we think about a Leicester asset? The likes of Pereira even, or Maddison, or Jamie Vardy for the armband.
Well, I think we were obviously loosely talking about them a little bit last week, because last week was there wasn't really an open and shut case for who was the strongest captain, with Man United and Liverpool playing each other, Manchester City and Chelsea not being available to captain options from. So I think they were more of a prospect last week than they are this week, just because we do actually now have a Salah at home against a team who aren't great. Yeah, potentially Aguero starting at home to a team who's not great. So I wouldn't be looking at them even if Puel was still there, because for me, I think the golden rule for captaincy, if there's something up in the air, it doesn't matter what it is, whether or not it's will they play, will they score, are their opposition in good defensive form, if there's anything up in the air, then I stay clear. And obviously in this particular case, there is plenty up in the air about a lot of their options, and I think Pereira is the chief of those options, because Maddison, Barnes, Vardy, those three players, I think whoever the next manager is going to be, I mean, obviously I think for this game it's going to be one of the previous coaching staff, but they're the kind of players, those attacking players who, to be honest, were unfortunate not to get attacking returns against Palace. They will keep their place in the team, and if they play as well as they did against Palace and they play as well as they did against Spurs, then I can see them getting attacking returns, because Brighton away from home, quite poor, and they're on a kind of bit of a losing run as well. Pereira, as I said, I think is the most up in the air, because even when Puel was the manager, we weren't actually sure. You couldn't call from week to week whether or not Pereira was in defence or attack, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because even when he did play in defence, he'd still get forward. And if he did play in midfield, it was like a nice bonus. But obviously, they have really struggled defensively in the last couple of games. Like, they've played well going forward, but they've just been completely done in by the fact that they've been getting done on the counter. So, and because Pereira's quite an advanced player, if the coaching staff decide that they just need to kind of grind out a 0-0, like playing someone at right back, I mean, I don't know who they would go for because they are limited, but Pereira potentially maybe dropped. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's just when there's so much up in the air and we don't really know what the mindset of that team is going to be over the next couple of weeks, and indeed in this one. someone like Pereira for me is just a huge risk, and I own him. I'm not going to sell him. I'm going to start him just in case everything's fine. But with Leicester, generally, I wouldn't be signing their players right now. I wouldn't be selling them either. But there's just so much up in the air that I would just definitely steer clear for the captaincy, and just be mindful that if things kind of take a turn for the worse for my fantasy assets because of decisions that get made by new staff or whatever, that they're just, for me, they're kind of their approach. They're just very much on my watch list of I need to be very aware of any changes that happen there.
Yeah, I mean, they're for the risk takers, but the risks are there.
True, yeah.
And I think the rewards could be great as well. So one of the Fantasy Football Scout regular posters, Ruth NZ, posted something very interesting over the weekend. He had a look at Vardy's record in the immediate Premier League games after Ranieri was sacked. So this is going back a couple of years, but nevertheless, this shows what happens. So basically, if what's possibly happened here is a similar thing. The players don't like the coaching techniques, whichever, or the coach themselves, and they've gone. So the theory is they'll all be happy again and perform better. It's certainly worked that way in Manchester United, and in previous years that's worked at Chelsea as well, and it's also happened at Leicester as well. So Ruth's research has found out that 6 goals and 2 assists were achieved by Vardy in the next 7 games after Ranieri went. And I just think, my gut instinct says that Vardy is going to do well, I think, because they've got the fixtures to do it as well. And Maddison as well. Now, this was interesting. I was looking at shots over the last 4 home matches of all players, and top was Maddison. I couldn't believe it. Pogba second with 21, but Maddison at 22. He hasn't scored from any of them. But the fact is, he's there. There's 6 on target from 22. I mean, for his price and where he is in midfield, I don't think that's too bad. I'm very tempted.
Yeah, the only thing just to say on Maddison, so I'm with you. I think he was actually on my radar for Game Week 27 anyway. I went for Anderson in the end, which doesn't really matter who I went for because they both got 2 points. But he looks very good last 4 home games. The only thing just to say is that 9 of those shots were all in that one game. So, it kind of skews the figures a little bit. And the XG for those goals, I don't know the figure off the top of my head, but it was fairly low because Palace kind of restricted him to shots outside the box. But to be fair, he is the kind of player that can score those. So that's not to say I'm not trying to put people off, of course, but, I'd like to see him maybe in the box a bit more. Just to kind of, before I really go in on him, and that was always my concern with him when he was looking good at the beginning of the season. I think that's still been my concern with him now, is that he very much operates outside the box. So we'll just have to see. Any manager could come in, and this is just I think it's a crossroads for Leicester options. Either they become fantastic options again, or if they get a manager in like Sam Allardyce, maybe they won't be, but we'll just have to see.
It's possible. This is possible. I think, it's come at a frustrating time. There's lots of fantasy managers me.
We just signed all their players. So
fantasy managers like me who are considering their players anyway. It's added a bit of intrigue to that decision as well. We've also got lots of injured players. Also players like me who got Anderson in, and I'm immediately regretting that. I think I just went with the name. I didn't really look too hard at that. I was away last week, so I didn't really look too hard at that, and I wish I had, because I think someone like Maddison may have been better pick. I think his underlying stats are much stronger, but you never know. I haven't got time to decide. Blanks and doubles coming up. We have to decide quick. Back to the captaincy though this week. Chelsea versus Spurs. That potentially too tough to call, but there's often goals in these games. What do we think about some of the assets of either Spurs or Chelsea, and in particular Kane, who made a surprise comeback over the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. The Game Week 27 changed so much. I mean, the biggest thing being, of course, that Kane is now back, and so many plans that people had made about what they were going to do with their premium forward. The Aubameyang versus Aguero debate, all of a sudden it's like Kane has just kind of come back in like a wrecking ball, ready to just be like, well, what about me? Just one thing to say on Spurs on Son. I actually thought that Kane being back would be good for him, but it didn't seem to really. I mean, I think it looked like they were kind of back to the tactic of everybody just get the ball to Kane, and let's see what happens. And that just kind of didn't really work out because Burnley are quite good defensively. I wouldn't. I mean, loads of people still have Son. I wouldn't captain him for this game. I think, even though I own Son, I didn't captain him, and a lot of other people did. So it was kind of nice from a personal perspective. I didn't captain him for the reason of I actually thought that game would be the game where his run would come to an end, because he'd been very, very fortunate to get goals in the 2 games before. Hadn't done very well in them, but nicked something, and one of them was a goalkeeper error. So a blank was due for him, and it came at the time that I thought it would. So then Chelsea, I think it's the same. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell with Chelsea because they just continue to be an enigma. They lost 6-0 in the league game, and then they took Man City all the way to penalties the other night. So I never know what Chelsea team is going to turn up. I never know that. So, I mean, that is why I would be put up for the captaincy. But Kane does look good. He did look very good against Burnley. He was top for shots on target in that game. If it wasn't for an absolutely fantastic save from Tom Heaton, he'd have had a brace with that ridiculously good long-range shot. So, if I was ever going to captain one player in that game, I would captain Kane. Yeah. But I'm not going to. But it's just Kane is very much back on the radar. I can see him doing damage in the next couple of game weeks. And, I think, when we start putting double game week players into our squads, we know that Spurs will have one at some point. He's going to be, a very appealing option.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that, because I think during the double game weeks, which we think are going to be 32 and 35, well, we already know there are some fixtures there for those matches, for those fixtures. But I think Kane, but then do we have Aguero as well? And what about Aubameyang? And it just goes on. And suddenly we could see a lot of money piled up into the front line as well. Four shots against Burnley, that impressed me from Kane. Son just the one, that didn't impress me. Eriksen had 3 shots that game too, so Eriksen's still ticking along there, perhaps an alternative to Son. Chelsea, like you, I'm not keen on any of their assets at the moment. I mean, we saw at the weekend just the confusion with a goalkeeper being substituted off, refused to go, just to
I haven't seen that since pub football on a Sunday. I've never seen that in professional football.
It was clearly there was a misunderstandings there, but the fact is, if your manager tells you to go, you go. That's it. You don't argue.
Exactly.
No one. There was no Roy Keane there. Kick him off the pitch. It was just looked a mess. Don't want to go.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that shows that it's not just Kepa who has an issue with Sarri. It's the rest of the team, because to me, it doesn't even have to be Azpilicueta. I think was the captain on the day. If I'm in that team, and I'm not good enough to play for Chelsea, but I'm talking about, just someone who understands what it means to have a manager, I'd be just like, get off, just go. Like, you're embarrassing us. And so, and no one did that, which means that they probably side more with the goalkeeper than they do with the manager. So that just speaks volumes, not just of Kepa, but of everybody else in the team, that there isn't that same level of respect that other managers have got. So, yeah, you're right.
I'll tell you who's going to be a big miss, potentially, Ali. So we'll find out tomorrow whether he's definitely out. I think he's kind of back to some form of training, but we'll find out. We'll discuss that. But now Ali is a big miss for this fixture. Last 4 league matches between Spurs and Chelsea, Kane and Son and Eriksen have all scored once. They've scored 1 goal. So, okay. Ali scored 5. I put an exclamation mark in my notes after. I don't know if I conveyed that, but 5 goals. And so that's something to be aware of whenever Chelsea play Spurs, and if Ali's fit, get him in and captain him, because he really loves scoring against them. What about any others? Any others to consider? Just looking back at the fixtures. What about Wolves against Huddersfield? So we're going to whipping boys. Huddersfield are in the mix there with the whipping boys, and Jimenez, he can't stop scoring. So an option?
Yeah, we've actually had a few people on the chat near the beginning were all saying, well, hold on a minute, why haven't you started talking about Matt Doherty as well? Jimenez, I'll start with Jimenez. He just looks great. Last 4 games, no one's had more shots in the box than him. He is in it now transpires, and it was an interview he did on Mexican television about 10 days ago. So, I've caught it later than maybe some other people did, but he seemed to suggest that him and Neves are in a penalty rotation, i.e. Neves takes one, Jimenez takes the next one, and then Neves takes the next one, Jimenez takes the next one. So that's probably why he took the penalty against Bournemouth, having seen Neves take the one against Everton. But the fact that he's in that rotation is very good, but I don't think he needs it. He doesn't need the penalties to still look a good option. As I said, he's very active in the box. And what I love about Jimenez, he just seems to be just a complete forward. He is so good for chances created as well that either if his shot is saved, someone will knock in a rebound. But at the same time, he's very good at drifting wide and knocking balls into the box. So maybe Jota or one of the fullbacks to nip in on. So there's so many things I love about Jimenez. And yeah, Huddersfield, I said about a month ago, I reckon maybe this new manager, Sievert, could maybe make a difference. I don't think he has. So I can see him
made them worse, arguably.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they've conceded.
Trying to play a slightly more attacking style of football, which I think maybe has opened them up a bit more. But also, they can't seem to score still. So then that's why Doherty, people will be looking at him, because he just keeps ticking on attacking returns. He looks so good for attacking returns, and it's all about his position. It's not necessarily about what he's doing with the ball. It's just where he sets himself up, because the last 2 penalties that Wolves have won have both been won by Doherty, and arguably he should have had one in the game before, I think it was the Leicester game. Doherty should have had a penalty awarded for a foul on him then as well. So he's so dangerous. He's always going to be getting involved. So I can see, I mean, honestly, if we're looking for the most likely defender to get a double-figure return this week, I think it's Doherty, because I can't see Huddersfield scoring. I can see Doherty getting attacking returns. So,
No, I think you're right there. Attacking,
but the ultra brave for anyone who really over something left field.
Yeah, I mean, attacking returns in 4 his last 5 for Jimenez, and we know what Doherty can do. Points at both ends of the pitch. Huddersfield have conceded 10 goals their last 4 matches. That's awful. So, I mean, they're a championship side. So them and Fulham are championship sides. I would say that Cardiff are as well, and I think Cardiff will increasingly be so, because they haven't got the squad depth, and their players will get their injuries and get increasingly tired as the season goes on. But Huddersfield, yeah, they're doomed, and Wolves' options look good. I mean, just before we go, anyone else we haven't mentioned there? This is quite a good week to go for differentials, I think. So
yeah, maybe. Well, I can't end this video without talking about my boy Ashley Barnes. Who
you love him.
I had a 20-minute period before the deadline on Friday night where I was like, I could captain Barnes. Maybe, and I was really excited by it, and then I was like, no, that would be really stupid. I'm not going to captain Barnes and captain Pogba. But had I captained Barnes, I would have, helped myself to something like 6 or 7 more points, because Barnes is just in unstoppable form. He scored last 4 games. He scored in all of them. They've been against Spurs, Man United, so he can score against anyone, and that has been completely sustainable and continues to look sustainable, because going into that game week, the only player with more shots on target in the previous 4 game weeks than Barnes was Aguero, so he was second in that stat. But obviously Aguero played more games, so out of people who had played 4 games, Barnes was top. With that game week now thrown into the mix, he's still second behind only Firmino, Pogba, and Aguero. So for an option who's 5.6, I mean, to be honest, you've got to own him. I think you just got to own him, because the fixtures for Burnley look good, and game week 31 as well. You're going to need him then.
And game week 33 as well. He plays, definitely.
So I love Jimenez, but Barnes is increasingly sort of becoming my favourite budget striker, because he's so energetic. He puts in 100%, 120% in. He's a classic Burnley player who just won't stop trying. And the form he's in, he just looks so good. I'm not going to captain him this week, because I do think Salah is a better option. But like I said, he's for the last couple of weeks, he has been up there. When you look at our captain stats tables, he's up there in the same bracket as your premium options, and he's absolutely performing above his price. So he's very worthy of pointing out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very, very tempted to get him in this week. He's such a good price. I've got Firmino and Rashford out, and I don't think I would go as far as to captaining him. But I certainly wouldn't raise my eyebrows if someone said they were captaining Ashley Barnes. I would say, which sounds odd, but I would say
I should have done it. That's the thing.
I was going to say,
hindsight tells me I should have done it last week.
He's got the stats, he's got the fixture. He's playing Newcastle, and you never know with Newcastle's defence. And also he's got the form as well, and he's a great long-term option as well. Yeah, I can't argue with that. Just before we go, I just wanted to do a reminder. As well as looking at the team news tomorrow. Later in the week, we'll be previewing Game Week 29. We've got 3 videos planned for that. We've got Captaincy once again, team news once again, and a midweek Scoutcast. So we have no Scoutcast ahead of Game Week 28. People have to make do with this video and the team news video tomorrow to prepare for Game Week 28. But for Game Week 29, Scoutcast is back. Be myself and Az, and whoever we can scrabble together for that one, because yourself and Neil too busy at that time.
Yeah, it'll be around the same time as the games on Wednesday night.
Yeah, so we've got to shoehorn them in. There's too much. So there's a video and a podcast a day this week. You lucky people.
Very lucky. Yeah.
But for now, David.
FPL daily.
Yes, daily. For now, David. Thanks a lot, and good luck with the game week.
Cheers, and to you as well.